Right, that's going to bring us to our white cards here, and we're starting off with a banger. Could be the best common in the set. Novice Inspector, functional reprint of Thraben Inspector. Single white mana for a human detective, a common. It's a 1/2, and when it enters the battlefield, you investigate.
Yeah, this is, I think this is hands down the best common in the set, I
Yep.
would say, which may surprise some people unless you've actually played with Thraben Inspector. But the fact this is a detective for detective synergies, it makes an artifact for artifact synergies. It's like a great one drop. I mean, these cards were played in standard, they're played in cubes, like such a fantastic card. So this, I think the only debate is whether this thing gets into the A range.
Yeah, I was gonna give it a B plus, and I definitely could see it in being an A minus as well. Like, if I think we should get into a little bit, like not to make this review go 5 more hours, but if you are kind of like, why is this one so good? It's just you're getting so much for your single mana. Like, what I always stress that the quality of being a 1 mana magic card is just great. Now, some 1 mana magic cards are not good cards, but the ones that are so good because it lets you use your mana on turn 1. It allows you to double spell so easily, and especially with something like Novice Inspector, you're just getting so much for the mana you're paying. So yeah, just a fantastic card. Do you want to give the hot take A minus? I'll be happy to join you if you want to.
Sure. I already
Yeah.
wrote B plus for both of us, but let's change it.
All right, sweet. Let's do it. And a small nudge too. I do think white is maybe one of the better colors.
Yes.
Next up, what do we have?
Next is Market Watch Phantoms. We've already passed the one drops, which just shows you like how relevant that one drop particularly is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only the best one, it's the only one. Market Watch Phantom, 1 and a white for a 2/2 Spirit Detective. And whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, this thing gains flying until end of turn.
Seems great.
Seems really good. Yeah.
Yeah, basically just a flying 2/2. It's gonna be on most of your combat steps. I'd say like 70% of the time it's gonna just be a flying 2/2. Detective. Yeah, not a lot to not like about this. I think I would just give this like a pretty high grade. I think maybe even like a B minus. It's got a lot of little things going on like the detective synergy and all that. So it might just end up being a C plus, but I think I'm gonna start B minus.
Okay, I was gonna go C plus.
All right, cool.
But yeah, sure.
What's next?
Next we have Seasoned Consultant. 1 and a white for a 1/3 human detective. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, Seasoned Consultant gets +2/+0 until end of turn.
Yeah, so we see there's a few cards here and there that have this whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, the battalion ability if you've played with those cards before. And for that to be really good, you do want one drops, like the Novice Inspector, for example. And there's not a ton in this set, like Mark just said a second ago. So I think to make this card good as attacking 3/3 for 2, you need to make sure you've got like a few creatures that make tokens that this is going to turn on. It's not just going to be good as it's not just I think it's a below average 2-drop if your deck isn't supporting it, basically. If your deck,
yeah, I think it's far
below average. Yeah, I agree. It's like a D, right, or like a D plus or something. But in a deck that supports it, it's going to be about a C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to go C minus because I do think this stat line is just not that impressive.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Yeah, I'll join you there. Yeah, sounds good.
Sure.
Auspicious Arrival is up next. 1 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and you investigate. So kind of a cantripping combat trick.
Yeah, which is great.
Great.
Like something that boosts toughness finally, which is exactly what I want to see.
Yeah, this is a combat trick to keep your eye on. I think this is pretty darn pushed. Like we've seen these like cantripping combat tricks be quite good. The blue ones that we've seen in the past little while, all good, and this is not that much different, honestly. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give this one. Man, I my gut says B minus. Maybe I'm coming in a little bit too high on that, but
I'm not like it's still a combat trick. It doesn't, this is no Gaia's Gift or Feat of Resistance or whatever. Like
I guess, yeah.
I'm going C plus.
You're gonna go C plus on it. I'm gonna stick with my B minus. Yeah, I don't know. I just think combat tricks that draw a card are always really good, and it's cheap. So we've got here's another nice one. Inside Source. 2 and a white for a 1/1 human citizen. When it enters the battlefield, you make a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token, and has an ability 3-tap. Target detective you control gets +2/+0 and gains vigilance until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery.
Yeah, so and this might be the contender with Novice Inspector for best common in the set, which just tells you how good that white potentially could be, because this thing's also amazing.
Yeah, fantastic card. It's just If you haven't heard it from myself or anybody else, any other content creators, just a cheat code for evaluating limited cards is like, does it make two bodies and have good stats? And this one does, and has a relevant ability and relevant creature types. Yeah, just great card. I think I'm gonna go B on Inside Source.
I was gonna go B plus.
Nice, yeah, very good card.
I think this seems really good.
All right, next up, we've got a aura here. Due Diligence, 2 and a white for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. When Due Diligence enters the battlefield, target creature you control other than the enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and gains vigilance until end of turn. And the enchanted creature gets +2/+2, or gets to +2/+2 and has vigilance. Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit safer in that a bunch of your creatures have ward 2, and all the disguised creatures are going to have ward 2.
Mm-hmm.
But that means that you're not casting this on turn 3,
right?
Because you want to be putting this on a 2-drop most likely, and loading up one big creature I don't think is going to be like that great in this set. So this kind of almost reads like the 2/2 in AFR or whatever. That's 2/2 vigilance. When it comes into play, gives something +2/+2 in vigilance, and that card was not good.
Right. Yeah, it's not a trash card by any means. It's not like just a 0, but
it pushes damage.
Yeah, it pushes quite a bit of damage. I think the main thing that you mentioned is that I agree with is that it. I don't think things are going tall in this set. It's a bit more about going wide, especially in white. So I think you can put this your card in your deck, but it's not a priority. I think I'm gonna give this like a D.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
Sweet. Next up, another pretty good white common here. Makeshift Binding, 2 and a white for an enchantment. Enters the battlefield, exile target creature and opponent controls until Makeshift Binding leaves the battlefield, and you gain 2 life on top. And this is an effect we usually see it uncommon. It's common in this set. Gaining 2 life.
And it doesn't usually gain life.
Yeah, like that's huge. Like that little bit of life gain tacked on, that's really large. Yeah, I mean it's not a complex card by any means. What do you want to give it?
It's like somewhere in the B to B plus range.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna give it a B.
It could even be B plus.
Yeah, it could be.
I'm gonna go B plus. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna give it a B just because I do think you have to worry about here and there it getting blown out from under you with random naturalized effects. But then again, a lot more things hit artifacts than enchantments, so maybe I should weigh that a little bit less. So
well, but I guess also to talk to we'll flip flop here.
Yeah.
You often won't be able to hit your opponent's 3-drop, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. They can push.
So you know what? I'll go down to a B on this.
All right, sounds good to me. Yeah. Make your move. 2 and a white for an instant. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with power 4 or greater.
Yeah, this is we've seen. Why am I blanking on it now? I just had it in my the DMU card.
Destroy Evil.
Destroy Evil. We saw Destroy Evil be great. This is 3 mana, which is slightly different. But I still think I'm like normally you get these cards and you just give them sideboard grades and you move to the next card. But I think I'd be okay main decking the odd one of these here or there.
Yeah, Destroy Evil was in a format where games kind of came down to big creatures a lot of the time, and it was 2 mana. Don't want to just brush that aside. But I agree. Don't just write this off as a sideboard card. Do you think you'll play your first copy like almost always, or is it more gonna be like a 23rd on the fringe card?
Yeah, I think 23rd on the fringe card. I was gonna give it like a D plus.
Yeah, that's where I am too. D plus for Make Your Move. Griff Knot Tracker, 3 and a white for a 3/2 flyer. It's a detective. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 2 target cards from a single grave.
Not into this.
No, this is just like the upside on your Snapping Drakes needs to be bigger than having a nice creature type and exiling some cards from a graveyard. So this is not a card I think you're gonna want to put in your deck very often. And I would just give this like it's a low tier playable if you need it, and that's like a D- or a D to me.
Yeah, I was gonna see which one of those 2 grades you gave it, and I was gonna copy you.
Yeah, let's just give it a D. I think it's got power toughness. What's next?
Next is Museum Night Watch, 3 and a white for a 3/2, and it does have disguise. Disguise cost is 1 and a white, and when it dies, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token.
Yeah, this one's kind of interesting. So you don't have the feel bad situations like we talked about where your disguised creature flips up for less than 5 mana and eats something else, eats another disguised creature. But this one kind of has a little bit of that going on. Like, your opponent attacks into you, flip this up. Maybe you've even played another 2-drop that turn, you pass the turn, and they trade, and it's like, oh, that wasn't very good for me. So
Yeah, no,
yeah,
yeah, I'm with you. So like normally death triggers are bad, but part of the benefit of this is your opponent might not know there's a death trigger. You
absolutely.
disguise it.
Yep.
And then even if you play this on the front side, which seems kind of bad, like we talked about everything trades. If you can play this and have your opponent not want to attack you, that sounds like heaven.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds great. um, yeah, this is a bit of a tricky one. It doesn't strike me as just like woo in your face power, but I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm gonna go C. I think this will make a good chunk of my decks, but not all of them.
Yep, I was gonna go see as well for Museum Night Watch. The next one is On the Job. This is 2 white white for an instant. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn, and then you investigate.
Yeah, weird card because normally you want to cast this to kill somebody,
Yeah.
and so investigating doesn't matter. And then there's also, as we said, probably less likely to be wide boards in this set.
I think that's true in
So
general, but with white, I do think white and some red cards are going wide. So I agree with your sentiment, but I do think this in the white decks is gonna do the go wide thing.
yeah, and like I'm wondering how often you're gonna be fine using this to like if you could like win one combat
Mm-hmm.
with a creature and like trade up on another one and investigate, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think the idea it is a little bit weird. Like you said, you usually want to cast these cards as the last card of the game. I do know like the design incentive behind it. I know they've made a conscious effort to make these like kind of finisher cards. They want to incentivize you to sometimes cast them before the last turn of the game. So that's how you get stuff like Hazardous Blast, which maybe was not.
Hazardous Blast was not that at all. Hazardous Blast
I know.
just killed everybody.
I know. That was not maybe a misstep on their part, but that's the idea behind this. So, like you said, you do sometimes want to cast this like on turn 5 when you're not actually going to kill them.
You could have used Daring Discovery as an example.
Sure.
Let's keep it recent.
Yeah,
But
Daring Discovery.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
So this card, I do think when you're going wide, this is kind of like we've talked about this for a few other cards, like the 2-mana 1/3 that when it attacks, if you have 3 creatures, it gets +2/+0. If you just have a bunch of creatures, it's not great. And this is what I always say about these kind of mass pump effects. If you're just like looking at this as your finisher, more times than not, you're more just gonna like trade up a lot of the time. Maybe win a combat here or there. You really do need to have a lot of creatures going wide to be able to really make this like your true finisher. And if that's the case, I think it's a solid one.
So, like, white also has the 2-mana +2/+2 investigate.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
For 2 mana. And
Yeah.
that gives like so on one creature it's like embarrassingly better. On 2 creatures it's still probably better.
Right.
But you need to really have like 3 or 4 creatures for this to be doing it. So I don't know. Like, I kind of see it, but I also I think I'm gonna go like D plus.
Yeah, no, I think I'm gonna go in that range too. And you raise a great point there with the auspicious combat trick, the +2/+2 and investigate, because you're gonna be playing that. Like, if you want these kind of cards, like combat tricks, mass pump spells, they're gonna be some of your only non-creature spells in the deck. Because this kind of card on the job specifically, like you want the rest of your spells to be creatures. You don't want to be drawing a bunch of removal with this kind of card, right? So you're gonna go for that +2/+2 combat trick the first 2 or 3 copies, I would imagine, over this one. So I think it's just not going to make your deck all that often, even though it kind of looks like it might. So yeah, I'll join it D+.
Okay.
Sweet. Yes, cycles for 6 mana, chat says. Next up, we've got Hazda Vigilante. This is 5 mana, 4 and a white for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control with power 2 or less.
So it's just one of the Titans. It's just a Titan.
It's just a Titan, yeah. It's just Sun Titan, yeah.
I mean, joking aside, I think this thing is better than it looks.
No, me too. It reminds me of the one from Brothers War, the 3/4 flyer that put a counter on a soldier. And that card was pretty good. This one, it brings 5 power, spreads out a little bit, demands to really ask your opponent to say like, all right, I either kill this thing or you're gonna have a tough time in combat next turn.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to compare one of the previous cards to Eomer. We've got another one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so it's a B+. No, I still think it's like, it's a 5-drop. You always have to be like, all right, temper your expectations with 5-drop. But it's a solid one. I would give House of Vigilante a C.
Yeah, I think C is it's going to make a good chunk of my decks. I think this thing's pretty decent.
Yeah, doesn't have vigilance. Very funny.
Yes.
All right, Defenestrated Phantom is up next. This card makes me laugh because it's almost like it's from Cons of Tarkir. This is 4 white white for a 4/3 flyer. So 6 mana for a 4/3 flyer. Disguise 4 and a white.
This, I don't know what they were thinking with this.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's very over costed, it seems.
Like, I think this one made it through the file at like the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're just like, I'm just done. Like, let's just whatever,
Well,
just submit it. No more edits.
We'll workshop it tomorrow, and then yeah. I would hope this card doesn't make my deck.
Yeah, I'm like, you talked about Sirkovitz saying not to give Fs, but I want to give this thing an F.
Yeah, I was gonna give it a D-, but if you want to stamp an F on it, like that's totally fine.
I'm gonna put an F on it.
All right,
you can give it a D-.
All right, I'll keep my D-. That's gonna bring us to uncommons now. So back over to the 1 mana slot. Forum Familiar, single white mana for a 1/1. It has Disguise for 1 and a white, and it says when Forum Familiar is turned face up, return another target permanent you control to its owner's hand, and then put a +1/+1 counter on Forum Familiar.
Yeah, it's cute in multiple ways, but I don't think it's good.
No, you're never. This is kind of a fake split card, fake modal card, because you're not playing this as a 1/1 for 1 and being happy about it. And then so it's like, what are you doing with that second ability? Pick up maybe a makeshift binding to reset that, or the 3-drop that we saw that makes a token, save something from a removal spell. Like that's probably its best case. Like you have it face down forever, then it flips up and you save something from a removal spell.
Yeah, Thraben Inspector.
Sure, yeah.
But like, still, like I don't, I don't. That's 5 mana for a 2/2. We just saw Mischievous Pup.
Yeah.
Was not good as a 3/1 for 3. Like this is a 2/2 for 5.
Yeah. No, pretty down on this one.
I'm giving this one another F.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna give it a D. I do think there's like a little bit of utility, but yeah, I have no problem with you slamming the F on this one too.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny. We have so this cat, if you're not watching, is eating a big hunk of meat, and we have the big hunk of meat up next. What's the next card?
Krovod Haunch. This is a single white mana for an artifact food equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. The equip cost is 2, but you can also pay 2 mana, tap it, and sacrifice it to gain 3 life, which is of course the food portion of it. And when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 1 and a white. If you do, create 2 1/1 white dog creature tokens. And these ones are untapped, unlike the other ones.
Nice. This card's good.
It's weird.
It is weird, but I do think it's good.
Yeah, like if you're gonna, we saw the Snuffler. I guess like this is one of the non-clue based equipments where you can actually sacrifice it and bring it back.
Yep.
And I'd be a little bit happier about that, but you're not getting like a particularly good rate on anything for this, right?
So it's like a worse Bone Splitter because it's 1 and 2 to equip instead of 1 and 1, and then you sack it like 4 mana, gain 3, make 2 1/1s at some point. Like that's not so bad either. Yeah, you're right. It's like it no point you're like, okay, I'm getting a great deal on this. Okay, I am a little bit lower.
Like, what's the point where you want to sacrifice it? Because you're going from like 2 power worth of stats to 2 power worth of stats.
Well, you have no creatures, basically. That's the idea, right?
Like,
yeah. When's that? Yeah, you're hoping that doesn't happen. Yeah, okay, no. I still think it's okay, though. I still think it's like not a bad card. I would give it a C.
Yeah, okay. I talked you down to okay. That's fine. I'm going to give it a... You said C?
Yeah.
I will go down, just to be differentiator, I'm going to go down to D+.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think I'm going to play much of this, but...
Fair enough. Wrench. Here's the first one we have. Single white mana for an artifact clue equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has vigilance and 3 tap target creature. Equip cost is 2, and it's a clue, so you can sack it for 2 mana. Draw a card.
Yeah, and again, like when do you want to sacrifice this?
Yeah. This whole cycle is funny because there's the clue set that's coming out alongside Murders, and I thought these cards were just like for the clue set. It makes sense. Like these are the clue weapons, but yeah, I don't know. It just seems like an equipment I'm not gonna put in my deck. No. D-? D? Like.
Yeah, I think it's like D. Like it's not it's not that much worse than the Haunch in my opinion. You get
sure.
You get a +1/+1 for 2 instead of +2/+0. It's kind of fine, but you get vigilance and tapping something. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
No, I'm gonna go D- on this one. I don't think it's great.
All right, sure. I'll just join you at D- then.
What do we have next?
Next is Neighborhood Guardian. 1 and a white for a 2/2. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
Wow. This is a nice
Yeah,
one.
it's a great 2-drop. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so think about this like the Grand Ball Guest from Wilds of Eldraine, right? 2/2 that if you had 2 permanents enter, it gets +1/+1. It's kind of like that, but you only need 1 permanent enter, a small creature, and you can spread it around. It's not like a once per turn thing. Just imagine this into Inside Source, the 3 mana 1/1 that makes a 2/2 token. Like, just attacking for 4 on turn 2. Like, that's really, really good.
Or Dog Walker, like you
instant
speed. Yeah.
Yeah, this card's great. Man. So it's a, I think, pretty safe to say premium 2-drop, but how premium?
I'm going to go up to, well, so it doesn't do a ton on defense, so I think I'll just give it a B, but it could be a B+.
Yeah, I was going to go B for Neighborhood Guardian as well. Yeah, fantastic aggressive card. Perimeter Enforcer, 1 and a white for a 1/1 flying lifelink creature. When it is a detective, and whenever another detective enters the battlefield under your control, and whenever a detective you control is turned face up, Perimeter Enforcer gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
Yeah, so we see this kind of trend of better on attacks. Like there's the Night Watch Phantom or whatever. There's the Neighborhood Guardian we just saw, and then there's this thing that do want you to be the one doing the attacking.
Yeah, and worth noting that, like, forget about the other attacks. Just take the 2 mana 1/1 flying lifelink. It's not a fantastic card, but there are a lot of ways to augment your creatures, and any way you can augment this body, this flying lifelink body, like, it becomes a must-kill threat. Your opponent just can't race this at all. And you know, it does, and end up bring it back in that other line of text. It does pump itself. So I think this card's pretty good.
Yeah, I want to give this like a B-.
Yep, that's exactly where I was going to do go as well. B- for Perimeter Enforcer.
Sure.
Sanctuary Wall up next. 1 and a white for a artifact creature. It's a wall. It's an 0/4 defender, like most walls are, and it has 2 and a white to tap it. Tap target creature. You may put a stun counter on that creature, and if you do, you put a stun counter on Sanctuary Wall. So it's sort of like, you know, often you get into this game state with tappers where it's like there's one good thing over there. You're going to keep tapping out every turn, and this saves you a mana or 3 mana every other turn, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I want this card to be good.
I know.
I really want to be able to block in this set.
Yeah.
Is it good? Hard to say.
I don't think so. I think it's a little too clunky on, like, maybe make this cost 1, maybe make that tap ability 2 mana. Being an artifact creature, I think, is more of a downside than an upside. Yep. Cool design, but I think I'm just not that into it.
Yeah, you want to give it like a D?
Yep, I was gonna go D.
Yeah, okay.
All right, sad. All right, what's next?
Next, we have Call a Surprise Witness. 1 and a white for a sorcery. Return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a flying counter on it, and it's a spirit in addition to its other types.
Cool. So we've seen variants of this here and there. Just the 2 mana reanimate a 3 mana value thing. I think giving it flying is probably the best upside we've seen on this kind of card.
You think that's better than
a counter?
+1/+1 counter?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it's pretty close. So at very least, you know, recommission is what we're referencing here from Brothers War. I think that just think about the things you're getting back, right? Just value creatures, the Inspector, the 1 mana Inspector, Inside Source. You know, we're gonna reference those cards a lot. Like, that's just 2 examples. But yeah, I don't know. I think I've always been kind of happy with this card. This type of card. It's never like, yeah, just like slam it in your deck. It's awesome, but you're generally, yeah, it's never like a 20th to 23rd card, and you're pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty down on this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So first of all, you're not like there is some mill in the set, but white's not the color doing it. So you're not going to be self-milling like you were in Brothers War.
Right.
And then you do have, again, not in white, but you do have some incentive in other colors to be exiling stuff from your graveyard. And just like put it all together. And then also another thing is a lot of your the best thing you want to hit with this is a 3-drop, right?
Right.
And a lot of your 3-drops are going to be things that have disguise, and you can't like put them in face down. Or you might not even be able to target them if it's like a 4-drop with disguise. So I don't see it.
Yeah, maybe I came in too hot in my words because my grade's probably going to reflect a slightly lower grade. I was going to give this like a C minus, but you might be a little bit lower.
Yeah, I was gonna give it a D.
Okay, yeah, I'll come in on C minus. Yeah, I don't think it's a fantastic card or anything, but I don't know, and maybe I like these cards a little bit better than I should, but I've always been kind of okay with them. Okay, we got another case here. This is Case of the Gateway Express. I always want to call it Getaway Express. Case of the Gate. Don't want to have another clay fried bricks on our hands. Case of the Gateway Express. 1 and a white for a case at uncommon. When this case enters the battlefield, choose target creature you don't control. Each creature you do control deals 1 damage to that creature. So worth noting, the way it's worded, counts lifelink, counts death touch. If you've got a death touch creature, it's going to kill the creature straight up. If you've got lifelink, you're going to gain a little bit of life. To solve it, 3 or more creatures attack this turn. And when it's solved, creatures you control get +1/+0. Wow.
Yeah, this thing looks nice.
Yeah, this is great. Really, really nice.
I don't think you're going to get a ton of damage out of it, but
No.
you often, like, because creatures are small, you often won't need to get a ton of damage out of
No,
it.
definitely. And it is cheap enough that you can kill a disguised creature on turn 4 pretty often. Like, you know, 2 drop into 3 drop into this if that's what you want to do. Yeah, I think this card's really good. Like, I'm quite high on this card.
Okay, I mean, I was going to go around a B.
Yeah,
Are you
that's
going
yeah.
higher than that?
No.
Okay.
I was gonna give it a B as well. Yeah, B for the Case of the Gateway Express.
Sure.
And then another case here. I think white's the only color with 2 cases. All the other ones at uncommon. All the other ones get 1, I believe. This is Case of the Pilfered Proof. 1 and a white. The first ability is whenever a detective enters the battlefield under your control, and whenever a detective is turned face up, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. To solve it, you control 3 or more detectives, and when it's solved, if you would make 1 or more tokens, those tokens plus a clue are created instead.
Yeah, so 3 or more detectives is not going to be easy to keep around.
Mm-mm.
Although it is kind of nice that, like, the first ability doesn't mind if you play this before you have a big board, and then the second ability, like as a top deck, you might flip it right away.
Yep.
But then the solved ability is not even that reliable. Like, I guess there's quite a few things that make tokens in white that we've seen already. So maybe that's not true.
Well, every one of your clue makers makes 2 clues. Like that's
Yeah,
something.
clue makers, dog walkers,
Yeah.
and the inside source like makes a detective. So there's a lot there, I guess.
Yeah. Definitely not as generically good as the last one. So let's just
No.
imagine, you got the detective deck, you got the 10 detectives or whatever. And like you said, you still have to keep them around. That's not nothing. You never want to play this on turn 2 unless you have nothing else to do. I guess that's kind of my issue. Like, where are you fitting this into your curve? Like
You
turn
also,
4?
I think you need more than 10 detectives for this.
Yeah, I agree with that. So playing this on 2 just isn't good. It's a 2-mana 0/0. Playing on 4 plus another detective, that's not bad. But still, you're not always gonna have a 2-drop detective to follow it up. Pretty hard one to evaluate, I think. I think this is one that another one I'm just gonna mark as like, I'm
like a
curious
Synergy
to see.
C plus or something like
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna say Synergy C plus. I don't think
if you have enough detectives, I don't think you're cutting this thing.
No, I agree. It's a good build around card, but it is one that needs quite a bit. All right, yeah, Synergy C plus for Case of Pilfer Proof.
Sure.
Yeah, turn 3 is not bad if you have the Inspector, the 1-drop Inspector. That's a good point. Not on my watch. 1 and a white for an instant. Exile target attacking creature. So unlike push pull, this is an instant. You get to just exile it. You don't have to take damage beforehand.
Yeah, still not amazing, especially because it does seem like white mostly wants to be attacking. So I'm not sure where the defensive deck is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But they have mentioned that with more uncommons, there's going to be more chances to diverge. Like, instead of each color pair having just one thing you can do, there's probably going to be a few different directions you can take. So if there is a white defensive deck, I'm pretty happy to play this in it.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like, the thing we usually say with these kind of cards is that if you want this in a defensive deck, you don't want it in a controlling deck like Mark, or aggressive deck like Mark just said. But the exception is if your aggressive deck is like an aggressive flyer deck, because your opponent's going to be attacking you back on the ground, you're going to be attacking them in the air, you're going to have a good chance to cast this. So in a flyer deck or in a controlling deck, what do you want to give this?
Like a C minus.
I was going to go just like a C. I think C minus was fine too. But are you saying C minus because you think there's just not going to be a lot of decks that are going to be able to use this card?
Yeah, mostly. I do think there's some awkwardness. There's some like you're playing this mostly into, or you're playing this exclusively into open mana, so there's hexproof things, and I don't see it being that great. Like you're gonna have a choice a lot of times between playing this and like another combat trick in your
Yeah.
flyers deck, for example. And I think you're just gonna want to play the combat trick a lot of the time. So who knows?
I also imagine this card is going to go like way higher than your eye would take it, right? It just looks like good,
Yes.
like 2 mana removal, but you get to put a nuanced spin on it. So yeah, I'm going to stick with my C, but just
Okay.
good, definitely good to note that it's not just like generically great removal. Ooh, this is a cool one. What's up next?
Next is Case File Auditor, one of my favorite cards in the set. So this is 2 and a white for a 1/4 human detective. Already, chance of blocking. Thumbs up here. And when it enters the battlefield and whenever you solve a case, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast case spells.
All right, so yeah, you lead the charge on this one. Talk about it because you seem passionate, and I mean I like it too, but I'm sure you have some words to say.
Yeah, so the nice thing about this is that even though it wants you to have cases, it hits both cases and other enchantments.
Mhm.
So I think to play this, you probably want at least, like, bare minimum is probably 5 hits, which sounds like a lot. And you probably want at least 3 of those to be cases.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's going to be a card that gets played that often. But if you can get a mix of cases and enchantments, there are some really powerful enchantments we've seen already. The 2 we talked about earlier being the green-white Buried in the Garden or whatever is Lost in the Garden, something like that, and the Mind Control as well. And I just think like the idea of having a 3 mana 1/4 that gives you a source of card advantage. This is like the perfect example of what I want an uncommon to be.
Yeah.
And I look forward to trying to build around this thing.
Yeah, just some quick math in the chat here. We've got Danielia saying 5 hits is like 60%, which, I think is like an acceptable hit rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and how much, just to, make it clear, how much do you care about that last line of text there? You can spend mana of any color to cast cases.
Oh, like not much. But if you have like 3 of these auditors, then you can just start to play any case from any color.
Right.
But you don't want to be playing something that's otherwise uncastable.
Right.
Without this thing.
Yeah, sweet card. Really good card. It does take it's got a deck building cost, but if you hit it, it's really good. So again, we're gonna give this a build around. We're not evaluating it for like where to where you're just gonna like take it in the draft generally, but build around like B.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, like Mark said, 5 or more enchantments if you can do it, and there are there's also like the common Oblivion Ring that we saw too, right? So that's not even, it's not that hard to pick anything. It's something up like that. Karlov Watchdog up next. It's 3 and a white for a 3/2 vigilance. Permanents your opponent's control can't be turned face up on your turn. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn.
Yeah, this thing seems fine. As long as you're making multiple bodies.
Yeah, that permanents your opponent's control can't be turned face up, but it's probably gonna more be like annoying in the early days of the format when you forget that this card has that ability rather than actually good, because I don't think it's gonna affect too much, aside from maybe like a few rares or uncommons or something. Your opponent's just gonna have to give you the information face up. It's not like there's too many things that care about or really depend on you flipping out on your opponent's turn. So let's just not consider that. How much do you 4 mana 3/2 pumps your team when it comes down?
I mean, it has vigilance too.
Vigilance too.
Yeah, it's and it doesn't need to be one of the creatures attacking to pump your stuff. I think there's enough bodies in white. I'd give this a C-.
Yeah, I was gonna C-. It does suck. There is actual shock in this set, and dying to shock kind of sucks.
Yep.
But yeah, I'll go C- in this one. Absolving Lamassu. This is 4 and a white for a 4/3 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, all suspected creatures are no longer suspected. And then when it dies, you gain 3 life and suspect up to 1 target creature an opponent controls.
Yeah, 5 mana, 4/3 flyer is just too small for me.
Yeah, it almost gets there. That gain 3 life when it dies almost makes it all right, you don't mind blocking with it. Maybe it was 5 life or something. I don't think the all suspected creatures are no longer suspected really matters that much. Like,
It makes it a bit easier for you to block things.
yeah, exactly, a little bit easier. It's not like there's a lot of games that first ability is just like not gonna do anything at all. Yeah, I'm pretty low on this one too. It's like a D plus.
I was gonna give it a D.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Essence of Antiquity. This is a funny one. 3 white for a 1/10 artifact creature. It's got Disguise. Disguise cost is 2 and a white, and when it's turned face up, creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn, and you untap them.
Yeah, this. So like I'm a man who prefers to block, and this thing blocks.
It blocks, yeah, it blocks everything very well.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, there is a lot of menace. There's a little bit of death touch.
True.
So, I mean, it's certainly not you're not safe with it. But that ability, hexproof and untap for only 3 mana to flip, like you're gonna surprise some people with this.
Yeah, and it's good in like a variety of game states too. Like your opponent, you want to attack all, but you're dead on the crackback, right? Well, you can still attack all, and that's fine. You just have a bunch of mana lying around, or a little bit more mana than you can spend. You don't mind just leaving this up. The opponent's likely to cast a removal spell in the next few turns. Just people have 3, 4, 5 removal spells in their decks pretty commonly these days. So yeah, I say I like this one, even though it looks really funny.
Yeah, it is an artifact,
Yeah.
which is usually a downside.
Yeah.
But I would give this like a C.
In your more defensive decks, right? Like you don't really want this that much in like a white aggro deck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it might even be like a C plus in like the slow, if there is a slow white deck. But I've graded both of the cards that I think are good in that slightly lower.
Yeah, sounds good.